Hi, I'm Judith Leblein, and welcome to Conversations. In recent years, there's been a great renewed interest in World War II, partly because of Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation, or the film Saving Private Ryan. This summer, Pearl Harbor's about to be released. But there is a side to The Greatest Generation that has gone really untold. History books have ignored it a bit, and that's women in the military during World War II, and I am really excited about today's show. Joining me is Theresa Italiano, Ann Witkowski, and Yeoman First Class Ida Leblein, who I come to call Mommy, and they're going to talk about women in the military in The Greatest Generation. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you all here, especially my mom. Terrific.
We're pleased to be here.
Well, thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about the personal side of being a veteran from World War II and find out a little bit about what women did do in the military. Theresa, I'd like to start with you. You were a Navy nurse.
Navy nurse, and I spent 3 years in the service, and 1 year was in Brooklyn Naval Hospital. The second year was at Long Beach, California, and the third year was on Guam.
Now, you wound up having to be transported to Guam by ship.
Oh yes, we went over on a transport with a destroyer escort, and we were 200 nurses and doctors, and about 3,000 troops.
Now, right now, people are talking about women being on ship, and many people are not aware that women had to be transported overseas during World War II. Now, what's it like to travel with 3,000 men? I think those odds are pretty good.
Well, we didn't have any association with them at all. We were kept separate, and we did have a Marine guard 24 hours a day outside our cabin.
Oh,
so
gosh.
we were well protected.
Oh, I bet. Now, where were you born and raised, Theresa?
I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and raised there.
Now, that was a big step to go from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Well, I came down to New Jersey to go in training at St. Mary's Hospital.
Now, you were already a trained nurse.
Yeah, oh, yes, I was a graduate nurse before I went in the service.
So you go from Scranton, Pennsylvania to New Jersey to Guam. What was that like as a young woman?
Well, it was quite an experience because we met all kinds of people, and it was wonderful. The boys were so appreciative of everything you did, and they had us in such high esteem. They were so afraid that they might hurt your feelings, you know. It was really a wonderful experience.
I guess, you know, it was new to be in the fighting forces and have women around. That sort of was a whole new world for both of you.
Yeah, I know that when we first got there, why, they gave us a party the first night we got there, and I could see from the men, some of them told us that they hadn't seen a woman in 2 years. In fact,
Yeah. Must have been exciting.
And I counted the number that I danced with was 50.
You needed to soak your feet.
Right afterwards.
Anything to dance with a Navy nurse. Yeah.
But they were wonderful, though.
Now, your hat is fetching. Tell me the history of that hat.
Well, this is the hat that we received when we went in the service, and we had white ones too.
So this is an original that you're wearing
This is
today.
an original hat, right?
Now, what type of experiences did you have? What did you actually do as a Navy nurse? Were you stationed in a hospital?
Oh yeah,
in
it was
Guam?
a hospital. In fact, on Guam, you know, the roads were so muddy and all. We used to have to wear high shoes to go from our home to the hospital. And when the casualties came in, there's something that I'll never forget is that the ambulances were just ordinary vans, and on those bumpy roads, winding roads, that they transported them to the hospital, and the hospital was usually up high, you know, and they'd get all bruises on them from being bumped around in the ambulance. So we had that to contend with too.
Tell me, Theresa, why the Navy and why a Navy nurse?
Oh, what inspired me?
Yes.
Well, I saw a movie, The White Parade, and it was nurses that were taking care of Marines, and that's what inspired me to join.
So you were a wave.
No,
No,
Navy nurse.
Navy nurse.
Okay.
Navy nurse.
Navy nurse.
Now, Now, there's another branch represented today on this panel, and that's the Coast Guard.
That's
Ann
right.
Witkowski.
Right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How and why the Coast Guard, Ann?
Well, there were several reasons. One, I wanted to do something because we were all so patriotic at that period of time. What could we do for the service to help win the war? And many of my friends went into factories and built ships and built airplanes and munitions and all kinds of things. I was not really interested in that. I wanted, well, I'll go into the service. The first service was the WACS. That was a WAAC, and then they changed it to the WAC and became Women of the Army. I thought they were too large an organization. I didn't want to get involved with them. Then the Navy, that sounded interesting. But then I had a brother who was in the Coast Guard, and he talked to me about it, and I decided the Coast Guard was the smaller of the services. Maybe I wouldn't get lost in the shuffle. So I joined the Coast Guard from Bismarck, North Dakota, and I was sworn in at Minneapolis and then transported to Palm Beach, Florida for the first group of, we were called SPARs, S-P-A-R. Semper Paratus, always ready, was the symbol. They don't know what SPARs are today. It's all just Coast Guard or Navy too.
So you did a lot of traveling as a young woman. How old were you when you enlisted, Ann?
I was about in my early 20s.
And what kind of commitment did you have to make?
Well, you were sworn in as any other service person was sworn in. You raised your hand, you swore to defend the United States of America, and you were committed to the war time as a reserve person.
And what was your role?
My role was as a yeoman to the commanding officer of the Coast Guard base at Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I finally was stationed. We had our training at the Biltmore Hotel in Palm Beach, which sounded fine and sounded great.
Sounds like a vacation, Ann.
It does. We got there. We were issued bathing suits and the rest of our uniforms. Oh boy, we're going to the ocean. You know, I'd never seen the ocean. I was all excited. Well, we met in our bathing suits, and they handed us a mop and a pail. We had to clean up the place. It hadn't been used.
Welcome to the Coast Guard.
We hadn't been used for many years. So they gave us a mop and a pail, and we had to clean up the place.
Now, my mom, Ida Leblein, Petito at the time.
Right.
Your story about enlisting, I have always been fascinated with and very proud of. First of all, why the Navy? I know the answer. Good-looking uniforms.
I like sailors.
Oh, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Our uniforms, both the Navy and the Coast Guard, were designed by Mainbacher, which was a famous
you were good-looking.
designer.
Yeah.
Good-looking, except for the off-duty seersucker uniform, I understand.
That was a summer one.
That was bad. But, Mom, I'm surprised at the Navy because why don't you tell us a little bit about your test to get in the Navy? Of all services for you to pick, I'm still surprised you picked the Navy.
I'm surprised I even went.
Why?
But a girlfriend of mine said, what are we going to do to help everybody? So I said, well, I'm not going to go work in a factory. You know, my schooling had to do with secretarial work and stuff like that. And the day came when we were supposed to go to New York City and join up.
So you decided on the date.
She backed out that day. So I said, I'm going all alone. And I had never been to New York City alone. But I found the way to get there, and I went to Wall Street, and I filled out an application, and they said, gee, we're sorry, you're too young. You can't join. I said, I came all the way out here to join, you know. It was a long trip for me.
And a big one.
So they said, well, sit down a minute and wait. When is your birthday? I said, it's in October, which was like 3 months later. So they had me sit down and wait, and then they came back to me and they said, how about if we put you through the whole exam and then you come back on your birthday or after your birthday and get sworn in?
Mm-hmm.
And that
that's
way
what
you
you
don't
did.
have to take the exam.
So when the
So I
birthday
said,
came?
okay, I'll do that. I took the exam and I passed it. And they said, okay, see you October 12th, which is my birthday, which happens to be Columbus Day.
Right.
So the day of my birthday, I got all dressed up and went all by myself again to New York City. And I was sworn into the Navy and told to go home and wait for the card
Orders.
to tell you
Orders.
where you're going and when you're leaving.
But there was a part of that test which was almost problematic for you. In order to get into the Navy, you have to do something. Swim.
Oh, but that was in boot camp. Please. We didn't have to do it then.
Okay.
But I
so
had
what
to do
happened
it
for you, a
in-
non-swimmer?
I didn't like the water. I don't know why I joined it.
The one and only time she ever swam was to get in the Navy.
Well, I went to boot camp at Hunter College in the Bronx, and it was in the winter. It was in December, and it was really cold up there. And we would go into the college gym. It was a pool, and that's where we marched and trained in the beginning. And we all had to go in, you know, they dunk your head up and down and all that silly stuff.
Anything to get in.
And yeah, and then they said, okay, now everybody get down at the deep end of the pool.
What's
And
going
I
through
looked
your
at her, I
mind?
thought, oh, she's crazy. No, I'm not getting there. But anyway, we had to get in line. And everybody was jumping in. So you either had to float or swim the full length of the pool. You had to know how to
Remember?
handle
Yeah,
yourself
I
in the
do that
water.
too.
And I said, oh, I'll never do this. I'll die. I'm going to drown, you know. So the teacher was on the side of the pool. Now, she was an officer, and she had a towel hanging like this. And she said, either jump or I'm going to push you in.
Oh, boy.
She said, you've got to do it, you know? She said, I'll be right here. I said, what are you going to do up there? I'm in the water. She said, well, grab the towel. If you're drowning, grab the towel. So I was so frightened, but I don't know how I did it, but I floated part of the way and swam the rest of the way, and I told her to keep her towel. And that was it.
That's commitment and dedication. And I think for some of our younger viewers, especially the young ladies, I don't think they could fathom what big step this truly was for women of your generation. Because, first of all, I think you're three gutsy broads, and I mean that affectionately. To get up from your homes, as limited as your experience was, and say, I'm going to go and I'm going to do something for the war effort that required such commitment, I find it admirable, especially for its time. We've come a long way, baby, in the military with women, and I want to talk with you a little bit about that. But, Mom, you were able to, after the service, you had a particular story. You went out to work, but your uniforms have stayed on with you all these years.
Yes, I still have my summer uniforms, and I have a navy blue uniform, and you have worn my uniforms after we got out of the service. I was much younger and thinner.
A little thinner. I do understand now all of you have joined an organization. We're going to talk a little bit about that to further educate young people about your role in the military and to make sure that services get out to female veterans, which is really terrific. But I remember when you first joined, when you had to report for a parade or a charitable event, they said, wear whatever part of your uniform still fits. And I see you have your hat and your gloves.
That's it. That's all that
Time marches on, ladies. Well, if you're just joining us, we're talking with women veterans of World War II, in particular, the Navy Nurse Corps, the Waves, and the Coast Guard. Now, Theresa, tell me a little bit. You were in Guam. Some of your thoughts at that time about the war. What was it like to be your age and to know your nation was at war and to know how bad it was? What was that like? It's hard for us to understand that.
Well, I think I had a good satisfaction that I received from knowing that I was helping the wounded and to see how much they appreciated your service.
So there was never a moment of doubt in your mind
No.
as to what you needed to do for these men and women.
Yeah.
Now, what rank did you rise to? You were a lieutenant?
I went in as an ensign, and then when I went to California, I was promoted to a JG, and then I was promoted to a full lieutenant, but I never accepted it because I didn't want to go back in the service again. See, when you get promoted, you have to fill out a form and accept that. But I didn't do, because I knew that if I did that, I would have to go back into the Korean War, which I didn't want to go back in again. And I was deferred from that.
So you could have been called back. You were required to go into the reserves. You as well, Mom, in the waves, and
I was
and you
called
as well,
back
Ann?
for Korean War, but I was married then and having a baby, so I couldn't go.
You couldn't go. Yes, we needed you at home. How about you, Ann? Were you required to do reserve time as well?
No, you were not required to do it. You could get out, and that was the end of it. You could have stayed in it for a while, and some people did. Some people did.
Now, Mom, you did secretarial services in Washington, D.C.
I worked in Washington, D.C. at the base of the Washington Monument, across the street from the White House. And I worked in the Bureau of Ships. The Bureau of Ships supplied the men with their radio, radar, and sonar equipment. So we were working night and day. I mean, they would have to notify us, and then we would see that the equipment was shipped out to them. And I was the secretary and office manager of this special office there. And I had a lieutenant and a lieutenant commander as my supervisors. And I had one Navy girl working for me, and I had 12 civilian workers. They were young high school girls that were recruited all over the country and were brought to Washington, D.C. to work
So
for the government.
just as women filled the spots for men in factories, you filled the spots freeing up men to go to the war
Well, that
effort.
was the purpose.
Yeah,
The
that was
purpose
the
was to
reason.
free a man to serve.
And you were all comfortable with that and proud of that.
Yes.
We were, but the men weren't.
Really?
No,
Yeah.
Some men.
Some men.
I guess.
Tell me about that. Some
Well, I
men were
didn't
resistant.
experience that,
You
but
didn't.
perhaps
We've
Ida
heard
did.
that they resented it because some of them didn't want to go. It was better for them to stay in Washington and work than go on board ship.
And it had to be frightening for its time. Suddenly you're working side by side with women and women. It was really the start to us being able to be qualified for jobs. You ladies paved the way to make it much easier for our young ladies today. Speaking of that, any strong thoughts for or against the idea of women in combat? Have you thought about that, looking at what you've done and seeing how women have advanced? Any thoughts about that?
I have some kind of strong thoughts on that. I don't think that women belong in combat, but they certainly can serve in other areas.
I don't believe they should be
I
in
don't
combat
either. I
either.
don't believe they
I
should
feel
be in-
they should serve.
Because of the physical nature of it or the danger? What?
Oh, several things, the danger and the physical, sure.
Now, each one of you have 3 different hats, I'm saying. Have uniforms changed a great deal when you see the young women today?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
the hats have changed.
Completely.
Most of I believe the Coast Guard do wear what they call the bucket hats. Bucket hats. We mostly wore hat like
This is an
Ida has on. It's called
overseas
an
cap.
overseas hat. Overseas hat.
Are you surprised when you hear about what the women have been able to do? I mean, we have women now on ships, on aircraft carriers. Probably from your perspective, never a doubt that women couldn't handle it.
That's true. And it was discovered in World War II that women could do just about everything.
We have women in our group, you know, at our unit, and they were decoders, right?
Decoders,
They
some
worked
very
in the-
critical areas there were.
yeah,
A lot of roles that we are not aware
that
of.
you
that's
wouldn't
right.
know.
Now, Ann, you're very active nationally and in the state of New Jersey, and what I'd really like to do is get a message out to female veterans who may be watching, and they may not be aware at all of benefits that are available, or better yet, organizations.
Organizations, yes.
The organization that you are all in together, want to tell us about that?
It's called WAVES National. It's the women of the seagoing services, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines. And we do meet monthly, and we do have meetings. We go to different programs. We participate in parades. We do volunteer work. We do community work. We support the nursing homes in New Jersey. We do many, many things, and all are active in this organization called WAVES.
This organization's main office is in Washington, right?
The national office.
The national one. And then we're all units.
We are units. There are 4 units in the state of New Jersey that support the national organization.
Okay.
And
now,
there are units in every state.
We're going to be showing some phone numbers. The first phone number is the Veterans Administration Registration Office, and that's at 800-827-1006. And why should women veterans register?
Women veterans should join the VA, that's the Veterans Administration, to find out what their benefits are, and because you served in the service, you are eligible for benefits in the Veterans Association. All kinds of physicals and health care services, and especially pharmaceutical services. And all women who served in the service are eligible. You did not have to be wounded, and men also.
Or overseas. You could have
That's
been
right.
stayed right
Men
here.
also do not realize that because they served, they are eligible to join the Veterans Administration, which happens to be the largest health care organization in the world.
Now, in the time remaining, we want to talk a little bit about some of the other phone numbers and contacts for women veterans. There's the Advisory Committee for Women Veterans. There is the B.G. William C. Doyle Veterans Memorial Cemetery. Tell us about that, Ann.
There is a cemetery in New Jersey for the internment of all veterans and their wives. If you were a veteran and your husband was not, you both can be buried there. If the husband was a veteran, the wife was not, the both can be buried there. Or if you both were veterans, they can be buried there. It's a beautiful cemetery located in Arneytown, New Jersey. And at the present time, there is a memorial being built for representation of women veterans. And on top of it is, it was designed by our Women Advisory Committee, and at the top of it is a statue of the Minute Woman, which happens to be on my lapel.
That's now the symbol for women in
by
service.
one of our members
In New Jersey.
who was in the Coast Guard. She was a spar. Her name is Dorothy Dempsey, and she designed the Minute Woman statue, which will be on the top of this memorial, highest monument in the cemetery.
Do you know, with the dedication of the National Women's Military Monument in Washington, D.C., are you starting to feel like people are beginning to recognize women, and you must feel gratified at that now at this stage of your life?
Fantastic program in several days, and
I know you all attended and marched.
We all attended that. That's right. Right.
Well, I am really taken by the sense of pride that you have and patriotism, and I think it stands as a real example to young people today. Your association with each other, your involvement in the WAVES National Organization, what has it meant for you?
Well, it meant a recalling of memories, a recalling of benefits, it's recalling of comradeship, and it's been very rewarding, certainly when you've finished your work, you're retired, and you need something to keep you active and going, and this is an organization that certainly will do that.
We're going to show the number for that, too, because there may be a lot of women that qualify for these organizations and benefits that aren't aware.
That's
Well,
right.
I have 2 brothers who were in the Navy, and they were not aware of being able to get help with their prescriptions.
Which can be very, very expensive
And
today.
they have both. One of them now goes to Lyons Veterans Hospital, and the other one goes to East Orange hospital, and they're able to get their medication, because if you don't have a prescription plan, the price of the medicine is outrageous. Now they can get some help.
I would ask, would you do it all over again?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Without
yes.
hesitation.
I met so many wonderful people. Of course, I met my husband in the service.
Did you outrank him?
Yes, I did.
And Mom, did you outrank Dad? Teresa, did you meet a sailor?
No.
No.
When she
And I
came
have
home.
a friend to this day that we have been buddies since we were in the service in boot camp together.
Well, I know that even with the dedication of the monument, so many memories brought back up of friendships, and there are pictures that you've been able to see. And in New Jersey, I understand there's a movement to get a museum started, and through the Veterans Administration. So artifacts, if people have collections that they'd like to pass on for
That's absolutely
history.
true. Right. It's going to be located at East Orange Veterans Hospital.
We went there at a meeting, and we saw some of the beginning.
Right.
Some were World War I.
And they're looking for
flyers,
donations, too.
uniforms.
They
Yes.
need money. Just-
So you're feeling that women are finally getting their due?
Slowly,
Slowly.
slowly, yes.
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 Yes. I think once people start to understand the history, the hardest thing is coming from even my generation with the opportunities that were available to us to really understand what it meant then. You know, what you were giving up, and just the basic fears. Many of you were never away from home.
That's true.
And to one day wake up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and the next day be in Guam has to be a huge step of faith. And
It's true.
but to me, the perception I get from all of you is that when we entered that war, there was no doubt
That's
No.
right.
what had to be done.
We were
We knew we
extremely
had to do
patriotic
something.
and couldn't wait to do something.
And then the GI Bill did help some of you get
Oh,
started
that
when
was
you got out.
wonderful. I
Yeah.
went to school on a GI Bill, and 8 years and 2 children later, I had my BS degree from NYU, and I went on, got a master's, and then later on I got another master's at Rutgers, all because I'd been in the service.
And I know Teresa
Yeah,
did
I-
as
yeah,
well, and such a commitment that all of you made. And on behalf of the generations behind you, admiration and great gratitude to you for making that commitment. And again, affectionately, what a bunch of gutsy broads.
And we do it all over
And
again.
you do it
We
again.
would tell
again.
young ladies today that it would be good.
Yeah.
It's good for them.
It's good for them.
Expanded your
Treats-
horizons.
Yeah.
They teach them a lot.
Well, if you weren't convinced that this was the greatest generation, today's show will certainly convince you that of the female perspective, certainly the greatest generation. Thank you on behalf of our country, and keep up the good work and have a great time.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for
Thank
inviting
you for
us.
having
Oh, and I'm happy to have you too, Mommy. Oh, won't you join us again for yet another conversation? I'm Judith Leblein.